All right, everybody. This is the Digital Craft, the radio show. I feel like I should be talking about this in a very exciting voice because this is an intro with intro music. I should talk about being an underground bunker or being amazing or being at the top of Mount Rushmore or Mount something. But really, we're just going to do a quick break in the music, and then we're going to come in with a subtle, poorly looped track. This is going to get us a little more comfortable towards the topics we're talking about, which is computers, internet, websites, graphic design, programming, music. And this is the start of the show and the end of the intro.
Every time I hear me say music at the end, I feel like I already said it somewhere in there. So next time I'm going to have to check that. So today we're doing another show. I'm getting a little, I think I'm overdoing it. I spent that month off and now I'm doing show after show, which maybe that's the way to do it. I don't know. I'm also doing video after video. If those of you haven't noticed, I am in the middle of rendering video number 20 for the Dynamic series, where we introduce the blog portion. So that's exciting, I think. Today's show was going to be about tablets, but then I decided that's boring. Tablets are tablets. At least I'll say that now, because I don't feel like talking about them. What we're going to talk about is something that you know, I've been doing this for, I'd say, since the early 2000s. Even when I was in college, I was taking jobs and doing freelance work when time allowed for it. And the more you get involved in this and the more known you are for being a nerd, a web designer, a graphic designer, or whatever, the more people come knocking on your door with ideas. Now, here in the great city of Fort Wayne, Indiana, we are not a extremely wealthy city, so we have a lot of people who have these brilliant ideas, and I don't want to knock their ideas because a lot of them are very, very good. However, what they don't understand is how much time, money, and all the above goes into making these ideas come to fruition. And 9 times out of 10, maybe give or take, the individuals who come to me are looking for a partnership. They don't have any capital, they don't have any money to say, hey, here's my budget, what can we do with it? And as most of us who get into this business, we make the mistake of doing the partnership idea in the beginning. And then we soon realize that it's not much of a partnership. You have, well, for instance, let's just say there's a guy that comes to my office, tells me his great idea. I decide, yeah, I'll work with you on it. Partner, equal, 50-50. That's another thing. 50-50 doesn't mean 50-50, but we can talk about that later. What you realize, though, once you get into it, is that the individual really just has an idea most times. If they knew how to do what needed to be done, well, then they would be working. However, it ends up being me or the person being hired or, quote, partnered, doing all the work. And so that's not good, because then we're just spinning wheels, not making any money, and spending our heart and soul and time dedicated to this project that this other person is rightfully, passionate about. But they don't realize that we're not making any money, and we're basically dying here because we're spending all of our time on this project. And sadly, 9 times out of 10, that project never happens. Same goes when you give out discounts or do work for less than what you should. The project usually doesn't get done, and you are normally the one who looks bad. And that kind of goes along with one of the other shows I just did. It's not good practice to offer deals, do things for free, because it ends up just making you look bad, because there's no way in the world you can do things for free. If you go anywhere else, if you go to stores, anything like that, and you say, hey, just give me this for free, and these people keep doing that, they're going to go out of business because they have to make money. But anyways, that aside. So ideas, though. That's just an example. That's an example from my past, and almost anybody's past in this business. You're going to kind of have to either be savvy enough to avoid that situation from the get-go, or at least learn from it the first time, and don't make that mistake again. And sometimes when you're a freelance worker, money doesn't always come easy, so you get tempted to make those decisions too often. So what we're talking about are great ideas with people who do have capital. So, since I've evolved and grown in this industry, worked for different people, worked for myself, own my own business-ish, I started coming across people who do have the money, maybe not all the money they need, but at least they have an idea of what it takes to do something. And I'm not going to name names. I won't name people I worked with, firms I worked with, everything like that. That's not fair. It's more about the experience and the knowledge to me than anything. I don't have any ill will towards anybody, at least not at the moment. So, say John Jane Doe comes to me with the most brilliant app in the world, or we'll say website. It's going to be a great website. No one's really done it before. Maybe somebody's done it, but they haven't done it just right. It's time to move in and take the good parts of what was already done, and then just revamp it, launch it. We're going to be millionaires. It's going to be great. And that could totally be true. What we need to think about now, though, is when you do have these ideas, and I want to make this clear from the get-go. This broadcast here is it's for us, the freelancer, or just the developer, designer, whatever, UX, UI designer, business owner, well, in that realm. But it's also moreover, it's for those people who have those ideas. I want to give kind of not necessarily a warning, because I don't want to scare people, but just give an idea of what goes into making these projects work. The first thing is money. As much as anybody who knows me, I hate money. I despise money. Money to me is something I need to pay my bills, and anything else I have left, I buy gadgets that I probably don't need. Ultimately, I don't care. As long as I have a roof over my head and the children are fed, maybe even the dogs, then I'm okay. But the core of it is that money is important, because if you have a great idea for a website, and it's going to be a very robust website, it's going to include a user base, it's going to include money being swapped around, all sorts of things like that, then you have to do a lot of steps that cost money. And there's kind of 4 core parts here I've written out on my sheet. And as we know, when I write it down on a piece of paper, it's fact, at least in my eyes. I don't really have them in any particular order, so I'm just going to rattle them off, and then we'll probably put them in order. We have 1, development. We have 2, design. 3, UX, UI, user experience, user interface, which that might be a new term to a lot of people, especially people coming in with ideas. That one gets slid in there, and sometimes people don't understand that. And even I didn't understand that for a long time. I didn't realize that was an actual job. And then lastly, and I'd say most importantly, but it's more important than anything, because you can get development, design, and UX done, but then number 4, running and maintaining the site, that is more important than all of them combined. You can have all the money you need and all the resources you need to get the development, design, and user interface done. But if you don't know how to maintain the site, or you don't have a plan or the finances to hire the people to maintain the site, your site could fail. And there's a really good chance it will. And again, I don't mean that in a negative way or to deter people. This is more of a make sure you are prepared. When you walk into a design or development firm and you say, boom, I've got this amazing idea. You've got binders and schematics and everything, and you're showing everybody how this is going to work. Remember this. Someone has to run this site. Many times than not, the people with the idea have no interest in running the site. They want to cash the check at the end of the day. Who wouldn't? So it's something that's important. So let's go back to the other points. And we'll start with one, and then we'll do a break, and then we'll go into the other ones. The first part of anything, really, actually is not really in this, but I'll segue in, is the planning. And we talked about this a little bit on another episode. But planning is very, very important. And then planning leads into the other steps. More often than not, we start with the user interface, the UX, UI. Keep those terms in your mind because a lot of people don't know them. But in layman's terms, UX, UI, user interface, user experience, to the layman, when you look at a UX document, it looks like a bunch of boxes and scribbles. And I assure you it's not. At first glance, it looks like, all right, I just paid these people, X amount of dollars an hour to draw me a bunch of boxes with labels on it. That is how it appears. But what is important about this document, and this documents can be anywhere from 1 page to 50 pages. What we do is we work on these UX documents, and what's brilliant about them is that, yes, they are shapes. There's a box that says logo here, and then another box separated with lines that say this is the navigation and this is what goes here. And then off to the right of all this are some notes with some corresponding letters or numbers that, so you can say, oh, okay, this logo box is number 1. I can go over to the notes and read about number 1 and find out what it is. What's the deal with the logo? It's going to be positioned left. It's going to be so-and-so big, et cetera, et cetera. That's depending on how detailed the UX document gets. But what happens is we continue to work on this UX document. We send it to the client. They review it. They make notes. We make changes. And this can go on anywhere from a day to months. And this is very important because the moment this UX document is signed off on, it's sent to the designer and oftentimes the developer, depending on the complexity of the project. Once it's sent to the designer, it is way more labor intensive to make changes within Photoshop, Fireworks, whatever program you're using. Once the design actually starts, once these boxes turn into beautiful pieces of artwork, and then the client comes in and says, oh, wait a minute, I don't like that at all, then you have problems. Now, we don't necessarily care as designers. Of course, it's annoying. It's really irritating to go back through and change your Photoshop comp. But at the end of the day, the client is going to have to pay to have us do that. Now, would you rather pay us to do 20 minutes, 20 seconds, who knows, worth of work to rearrange some boxes, change some labels, make some notes? Or would you rather pay us 2 hours worth of time to go through and totally destroy our comp, if not more time than that? So that's why the UX is important. We also send the UX often to the developer, because the developer, we can take this because everything's laid out the way we need it, and we can start working on the HTML and CSS. And basically, we're going to make, and many times we're going to make a replica of what the UX UI looks like. So I might say I'm the developer, and then I go to the client and say, okay, I want you to take a look at this. Here's the presentable. Take a look at what we've done. We've incorporated the notes and and design in the UX document, and we've started building the pages. And they might look at it and go, okay, well, you just copied the UX. Well, that's not true. We used HTML, CSS, and all that stuff to put together the kind of shell, the framework, the template, while waiting for the designer to finish up. And that's a really neat dynamic there, because we can take the UX document and the designer can design around it. And if you have a good developer and a developer working alongside, even they don't even have to be in the same room, but they're working on the same document, they can have everything sitting there ready. It might just be some simple divs with a border so you can see the differences, logo here and navigation here and blah, blah, blah. But they're ready to go. As soon as those design comps are signed off on, they are ready to implement it. So that is your introduction to UX and what is involved in that. And like I said, it can take a day, it can take weeks, it can take months. The point is, depending on the firm you're working for, I can't speak for everybody, but most of us just want to get a job done. We want to make the money to survive, and we want to get the job done. We're not out to sell. We're not out to overextend what we're doing and make more money and bleed you dry, because we want you to succeed. Because good chances are that if we build this product and we build it right and you actually do succeed, your idea is brilliant, then there's a good chance, or at least the hope, that we are going to be carried along for the ride. So a lot of people who have these ideas try to hold back that fear that we are trying to take advantage of you, because while I can't speak for everybody, most of us aren't. We are proud of our work, and we want to continue this relationship. So with that said, let's move on to a break. Now, as noted in my post on Facebook, I snuck in, I'm going to have to use some of the same music again because we're still working on that music library, so I apologize, but I need a break to get something to drink. But I snuck in an older recording of my mother, which she would kill me if she knew I did this, but it is a recording from a radio station here that's still active called Whoa Whoa. And they had a recording studio back there, and my mother had the opportunity to do some recordings. And this was in 1977. My mother was a pretty well-known folk singer around here, actually in the Midwest area. She used to perform up in Holland, Michigan, at a place called Holly's Landing. She used to perform all over the city and just all over the place. So I thought I would slip this in here. What I had done is I had taken a whole bunch of reel-to-reel tapes and converted them to digital format and gave it to her for her birthday one year. And she was pretty thrilled. However, I don't know if she's going to be thrilled that I'm going to air it on the radio show. But this song is something that I remember, and I have to almost blame, maybe, give credit to my mom for giving me and my brother both the inspiration to do music professionally and or as a hobby, because this particular song I remember when my brother and I were very, very little, sleeping in bunk beds, she would sit with her guitar and sing this song. So it's all in French, so if anybody here is French, hopefully you can decipher the words. Maybe it's not a pleasant song like it sounds. But anyway, without further ado, this is my mother, Barbara, and this is from 1977 in Whoa Whoa Studios. And apologize for the quality of it, because these reel-to-reels have been sitting in my home and my parents' home since 1977. So here we go.
Tous les garçons et les filles de mon âge se promènent de la route de Pédou. Tous les garçons et les filles de mon âge savent bien ce que c'est d'être heureux. Et les yeux dans les yeux, et la main dans la main, ils s'en vont amoureux, sans perdre le lendemain. Oui, mais moi, sais qu'elle est rouge, la mienne pierre. Oui, mais moi, je vais sais que personne nous mène. Mais je comme des nuits sans joyeux plein forêt. Mais je comme des nuits le son est mou, tout je n'ai pas de rêve. Oh, tous les garçons et les filles de mon âge se promènent de la route perdue. Tous les garçons et les filles de mon âge savent bien ce que c'est d'autoroute. Et les yeux dans les yeux, et la main dans la main, ils sont amoureux, sont perdus le lendemain. Oui, mais moi, je vais sais qu'elle est où la mienne pied. Oui, mais moi, je vais sais que personne nous mène.
So there you go. That was my mother singing the song that I don't know how to pronounce. But I guarantee you, if you were a child and your mother sang that on an acoustic guitar to put you to sleep, you had sweet dreams. Anyway, back to our topic. So we've talked about UX and UI design, and hopefully we're getting an idea of why that's important. Boxes and shapes, little labels, notes. It may seem trivial, and it may seem like, why in the world am I paying someone to do this? But trust me, it's worth it. So we move on to the next step. And this is as I was getting to it, development and design kind of go hand in hand at this point. I mean, we work a lot of times separately. The designer will design the design comps, and we, the developers, may not even see them until they're signed off on. We might get some comps sent to us, some JPEGs, some flattened images, just to give us an idea in case anything has changed. Hopefully things haven't changed, because that's the whole point of the UX documents. But at this point, now we're working kind of in tandem. Now the development end, we're working until we get to the point where we can't do much more without the design comps. And then if we haven't already, we're working on database things, we're working on problem solvings, trying to make everything efficient. I've told people many times I have about 8 whiteboards on my wall, and a lot of times for these bigger projects, I've been in charge of coming up with the database and kind of the guts of everything and how it's going to work. And many times I have those boards full completely with tables, relations, and things like that. And then what my job becomes after that is how to normalize these things, how to get everything to be working efficient, kill all redundancies. If I can take 2 tables and merge them into one and make them work more efficient, I will. So usually what happens is I take those 8 whiteboards and they turn into one. And even so, I might slim that down a little bit. And that's the kind of work we're doing behind the scenes while we're waiting for the designer many times to finish up and work with the client. A lot of what we're doing on the development end, we don't actually need the client. I mean, we do a little bit, but most of what we're doing is, if done right, I've noted in previous episodes that what I like to do is talk to the client, whether I'm meeting them in person, sometimes staying for a couple of days and just whiteboarding the hell out of this project, or just being on the phone with them. I immerse myself. I make it my idea, not in a possessive sense, but I try to get into their head as much as possible. That way I don't have to communicate back and forth, because that leaves room for changes, confusion, and me second guessing what I'm doing. So I try to have as much as possible going. And then I can map out the database. I can start working on some of the back end. I can work on the kind of admin area of things. All this stuff I can do while I'm waiting for the designer. And then when the designer's ready, when it's signed off by the client, then I get not only some comps to look at to see if there's some things I need to change, but then I'll usually get the PSD. Now, on a bigger team, I wouldn't be in charge of taking that PSD, cutting it up, and putting the graphics in where they need to be. A lot of times you would have somebody else do that, or vice versa. Somebody else would be working on more development end, and I'll do that. It just depends on where people's strong suits are. I have the unfortunate situation where I know how to do kind of everything. I wouldn't say I'm a master of all trades or a jack of all trades. I'm just kind of good at a lot of them. So I usually end up getting put in the mix in an interesting area. But what you need to think about then is, so we've got UX, UI. This can go on for weeks or months. We've got design. That can go on for a good month or so. The better the UX document, the better the communication with the client during that period, the less time the design should take. Development usually takes the longest time because there's a lot of trial and error, a lot of debugging, a lot of different releases depending on how much there is a budget, if there is a budget for an alpha beta release, or if we're just going to go ahead and launch this thing, cross our fingers and hide. But you're seeing here there is a lot of work. These projects, a lot of times what will happen is you'll get a client come in. They're so excited about this thing. They want it done now. They're so excited. And again, I'm not downing them. I know what it's like to have an exciting idea and want to run with it. You know, I want to take it and I want to make it the next big app. I want it out tomorrow. I want to be making millions of dollars, but it just doesn't work that way. These kind of projects can take anywhere from 6 months to a year, if not more. And in that case, a really important thing is really just getting NDA, non-disclosure agreements and things like that in order so that we keep all the information that's going on with this project in-house and nobody knows about it. So we just have to cross our fingers that somebody else doesn't have the same idea. But so now, before we get to the fourth point, running the site, I want to talk about how all of these kind of coincide and decisions you should make before you confront somebody with your idea, because there's different approaches you can take to getting this job done, especially with development and design. A lot of times, there's some firms don't even know what UX UI is, so you have to work blindly with that, and you don't get that luxury, but you really should. So what are our options? And I'm just going to name a few. With development, a lot of times people will go overseas. And if you're listening to this overseas, I apologize, but I think you know what I mean. There's a lot of companies out there overseas, at least from America, that will offer extremely cheap work. Or inexpensive work, but at the same time, a lot of times it becomes cheap work. And I don't want to criticize anybody out there overseas that's actually doing good work. But what you'll see is a lot of rehashed code, a lot of poorly documented code, and it's really a lot of times you'll end up with a product that looks just like something else they did. Now, where this problem really comes in is if something doesn't work, or if somebody needs to come and have somebody else look at this work. I've had multiple times where I've had to look at overseas work, and I cannot make heads or tails. Yes, I know PHP. Yes, I know MySQL. Yes, I know HTML and CSS. Sometimes I think I know it better than English. However, just with any other language, people have their own style of writing things and doing things. So when there's no documentation, and when I mean documentation, I mean just plain commenting. This is why I did this. You know, a couple lines down, more comments. Here is what's happening here. This is why I did it this way. Things like that help us navigate the code and start to learn how they got to where they got. So that is a dilemma with overseas work. That's not to say don't use them if you don't have the budget. If you have to, use it, but just be aware of some of the pitfalls of that, especially if you decide to work with them because you have a low budget, but then now your product's succeeding a little bit and you want to start working within the United States or within whatever country you're in. You want to work with somebody closer to you so you can get, ideas back and forth quicker and have a more personal relationship. You're going to run into some of these pitfalls most likely, where a lot of times I'd say 9 out of 10, but almost 10 out of 10 times I've had to tell a client, look, I can't do anything with this. I have to start over. And in the maybe one case that I can remember that I didn't start over, it cost them more money than they probably spent on the overseas people for me to just go through and figure out what in the hell these people were doing. And that's not to say they did anything wrong, but I had no idea what they were doing. So that's something important to keep in mind. Now, staying within your country or staying within your city, whatever, finding a firm in town, or it's a much better way to start a relationship. You have the ability to contact them, even if I get hired here in Fort Wayne, Indiana, by somebody out in California. They still, it's drastic as it sounds, they know where I live. They can come out and meet with me face to face and say, what is going on? Where are we at? That's something you don't necessarily have with the overseas situation. So the relationship, the partnership is a little stronger there, and the responsibility is a little stronger. Now, the other thing to think about is, do you work with a firm or do you work with individuals? I will strongly suggest you do not work with individuals. Now, I'm an individual. I don't do freelance work anymore. I'm a teacher now. But when I was an individual, this is when I got approached the most. There is no way in the world that myself, even being a pseudo jack of all trades or whatever, I might be able to technically, got the bunny ears up, technically do everything that's involved in this, but with what time? Unless you have a budget that's going to keep my family and my life in order for the next year, there is no way in the world an individual can take on some of these big projects. So you have to be careful of that. You might, it's common, or I can see how the appeal would be, let's find an individual. We don't have to pay them as much. We can entice them with the whole, 50-50 split or whatever. And again, which the 50-50 doesn't really exist. Anytime you hear 50-50, question it. But ultimately, there's no way you're going to get that job done unless you already have the money to sustain yourself while you're doing that job. Or if you're going to put some money into it to help farm out things. Because really, it's a firm's job. And a firm could be a development firm, a design firm, a UX firm, or all in the above. But these are the ways to go when you're talking about these big ideas. Now, if you're talking about doing a mom and pop pizza shop site, sure, the individual is perfect. Even if it gets a little bigger than that, even if you have a local newspaper and you want to help, make the newspaper a little more dynamic, put all your articles online, archive them, things like that. That's something an individual can do as long as paid correctly. Now, after all this, you've got a pretty big amount of money spent here. Designers on their own, you're looking at anywhere from $30 an hour to $70 an hour. I'd say the middle is more appropriate, but they do range that way. Developers, we're expensive, and we're expensive for a reason, as long as we're getting paid correctly and treated correctly. But we're expensive because I'll have to preface that. Some of us developers get right out of school and think, I can charge $90 an hour for my work. That's not true. But the ones of us that have been around forever, the ones of us who fill 8 whiteboards full of database, sketches in order to normalize, condense, and make everything efficient, kill redundancies, things like that, immerse themselves with the project, become part of the person's head, for lack of words. We're the ones who charge that amount of money. So you're going to find a developer anywhere from probably $30 to $90 an hour and up. Now, when you're working with a firm, I'll just give an example. One place I worked at, now my pay rate got decreased drastically in order to get a salary, but on my own, I charged $90 an hour. My firm charged $125 for me. Anytime I worked, it was $125, and I'll guarantee you I was not making $90 an hour out of that. Now, I'm not complaining because I got a salary, and those of you who have worked freelance understand that there is a nice benefit to getting a salary, even if you've got to take a substantial pay cut. That paycheck every week or month or net 15, whatever pay scale you're on biweekly, it means the world to you, especially if you have a wife who would like to see some regular income and a mortgage that would like to be paid regularly. But so you need to keep these things in mind. I mean, so if normally I'm charging $90 an hour, but a firm is charging you $125, if a graphic designer is charging anywhere from $30 some dollars to $70, you're probably getting charged $90 to $100 for them. So you need to make sure you have the money to do this. And again, I'm not discouraging you. I'm just saying you can't come in with a brilliant idea and just hope that people are going to jump for it. And if somebody jumps for it, the odds are they don't have what it takes to finish your project, and it's just going to end in a mess. So how do you save money on this? We're talking about a lot of money here. We're talking about tens of $30,000, $40,000 sometimes. I've worked on jobs that are upwards of $50,000. They take that much money. Now, where do you save? How can you make a $50,000 job turn into a $20,000 job? Preparation. Before you even get to the UX UI design phase, sit with the firm, sit with the individuals working on the project, meet with me, the developer, meet with the artist, the graphic designer, meet with the owner of the company, meet with the salespeople, meet with everybody. Write down a document. Make it 50 pages for all I care. Get everything down on paper. Then move into the UX UI. Don't skimp on that. It may seem like, oh my gosh, I'm paying these people $50 an hour to make boxes and squares and circles with a legend that has notes next to it and all that. Trust me, that is way better than spending $100 an hour on the designer to make all those changes that you want to make. So there you're saving money. And then if you have the UX and the project plan set down, put together as best as you can, then us designers and developers can hit the ground running. We know everything we need to know. The amount of questions we're going to ask are so minimal that we can save so much money. And again, we're not out to make a ton of money. To just put it bluntly, we want you for the long term. We would much rather make $10,000 now and then somehow figure out a way to be working with you for the rest of the time. And for the next 10, 15, 20 years, maybe you're Google, maybe you'll last forever. We're going to be continuing to make money as long as you make you happy. So those are things to think about. We got one more point number 4, and we will get to that after our next musical break. And I did this on purpose, of course, obviously, because I don't have a whole lot of music bank, but I thought it'd be funny to, after playing a track from my mother in 1977 and expressing how that got my brother and I to get into music, I figured I'd play a track from my brother and I's old band just to show how music changes and what we got from that beautiful French song. So this is Going Down South, Pleasing Melanie.
Hey, yo! So sick goes town, not for me, not been rolling down every street. Never wanted me, they are the same, doing the same shit, man, to a different day. With same old song, till a different bar, same old riff on different guitar. Don't gotta get away, I'ma tell you how, I'm gonna leave this damn old town. We're going down south, man. Going out looking back now. We're going down track now. You're never looking back now. We've got the best pack, ain't looking back. Headed on south down the railroad track. Well, here in Indiana, that's where I grew up. Nothing to do but smoke and get drunk. Winter's too cold, summer too hot. The landman's way too many fucking cops. Come on vacation, leave on vacation. They're slow smoking for dislocation. No, last 1 year, life been free. As long as them police leave me be. We're going down south, baby. Going out looking back now. We're going down track now. Going never looking back now. We've got my best pack, ain't looking back. Headed on south down the railroad track. Down, going down, going down, going down. Well, I'm going down, down, I'm going down. Going down, down, I'm going down south. Going down, down, I'm going down. Going down, down, going down south. Going down, down, going down. Going down, down, I'm going down south. Going down, south, going down. Going down south, going down south. Going down south, going down south. Going down south, going down, I'm going down south. Yeah. So I'm headed down to Memphis, down to Tennessee. I heard good things about New Orleans. I need me some jazz, 30 old blues. Gonna get some grub down at Baton Rouge. Now when I find a spot that suit me the best, I hang my hat, gonna finally rest. And where I stay, family and I'll be there till the day I die. Yo, I'm going down south, baby. No, I'm not looking back now. I'm going down track now. No, I'm never looking back now. Where we all going down now. No, I'm never looking back now. Where we're going down track now. No, we're never looking back now. Well, got my best pack, ain't looking back. Headed on south down the railroad track.
And that was Going Down South by my old band Pleasing Melanie, my brother on the vocals, myself on the drums. And if you listened earlier, you heard my mother singing a French folk song, and you can see how things evolved from 77 to the mid-2000s. I get a kick out of it. Anyway, so last point. Running the site. We have the site up and running, or we have it done. Development's done. UX, UI's done. Design's done. Hopefully we've managed to save some money for the client, and we have a good relationship there, because I will admit things get really, really tense when, especially midway through the project, money's going all over the place. Even if you save money, money is money. If I walked in with $50,000 and I'm trusting these people to do what I need them to do, and they come up and say, okay, well, this is going to cost a little extra, this and that, you get a little concern and tension happens. But anyway, we're past that. Development's done, design's done, UX is done. Now what happens? We have to run the site. And I say we, I lied. I don't run the site. developer doesn't run the site. The owner of my company, firm, whatever I'm working for does not run the site. The designer, the UX UI guy does not run the site. The owner of the site runs the site. And that is something that in my experience, I don't think people are prepped well enough for before we start the deal. Because, in the beginning, it's about sales. You don't want to, you want to explain how things are going to work, but getting to point number 4 of running the site can be a downer and a deterrent. And when I say it's not about the money, we do still need the money to get the job. So I feel that oftentimes that part gets cut out until kind of midway through. And maybe that's not good practice, but it's important to know who is going to run the site. All right, so let's give a scenario. Say we have the next new Facebook. We have a site that has a user base, we have advertising opportunities, we have news feeds, we have friends, we have relationships. It's a total social, it's the next big social media website. Now, the owner who hired us, or let's say the client that hired us, obviously, in most cases, does not have the chops to know how to maintain this. Otherwise, they wouldn't have hired us. And again, that's not downing them. They had the idea. They were the brains behind the idea and getting it started. So what do they do from there? And a lot of people think that once the development, design, UX, all that stuff's done, once we say, hey, we're launched, or at least even we're doing the beta or alpha launch, they think, all right, cool, we're done. I can wash my hands. I can go buy a Subway sandwich with the $5 that I have left. But that's not true. Somebody has to run this, especially in a robust site like a social media site or any site where you have users. When you have users, you have user input, you have posts, you have things you need to monitor. You need to be able to ban users, reprimand them. You have to deal with privacy issues, security issues, things like that. And that does not fall on our back. Now, security, maybe. Security is part of the developer's job. We have to make sure that we make the site as secure as possible. But after that, the owner, the client has to take care of that. They have to maintain it. They have to make sure that the security measures that were put in place are still working. And that doesn't necessarily fall on us. Yes, sometimes we make mistakes, but things change. Hackers find new ways to hack. It's annoying, but they do it. They're going to be around forever. They're just like spam. They're a plague. So what all goes into running a site like that? Well, if you look at Facebook, I don't remember the numbers and I don't feel like pulling it up right now, but I would venture to say there's at least 1,000 to 20,000. There's a lot of people working on Facebook. Some of them are just developing, but a lot of them are running damage control, for lack of better words, keeping the site maintained, making sure people aren't abusing it, and things like that. So, yeah, you have a great idea. You have a site that's launched. It's ready to go, but who's going to watch over it? So you also have to have a budget in mind for hiring people, whether it be interns, which sadly aren't free here in the U.S. anymore. I don't know if that's a statewide thing or if it's a countrywide thing, but interns, if they're doing anything that makes you money, you have to pay them unless you can get them straight out of college and they need college credit. That's the only way you can pull off using them without having to pay them an actual income because they're getting paid by college credit. But these are things you need to think about. You need people, you need loyal people, and you need the budget to be able to pay them to be loyal, to take care of the site. So I just want to, it sounds like I'm telling people to squash their dreams and things like that, but it just needs to be known that, one, you can't walk into a firm or just talk to an individual. Your cousin Johnny, you found out he can make a website. You can't just come in and say, hey, let's make this. I'll split the profit with you. it's not going to work that way. I mean, odds are it's not going to work that way. It's going to end in a disaster, especially if you're dealing with family. Those family members probably won't talk to each other for a while. But if you walk into a firm, you need to make sure that you have a budget. You don't necessarily need to disclose the entire budget, but you need to be able to sit down and work with the firm, the sales team, the development team, and you need to listen to them. And listen to them as far as what work goes into it, what order of things needs to happen in order to save you money, to make things run efficiently. Otherwise, you're not going to have any money left over to maintain and run the site. And you're just going to have a brilliant site that's going to work for a while and then get destroyed. And I would say there's a lot of examples out there, but if you didn't see them when they first came out, then they're already gone. I don't know how much more I can really speak to that effect, but I just wanted to make that clear. I figured this topic was way cooler than talking about tablets. Maybe we'll talk about those a little later. Maybe we'll talk about those when I can actually get my hands on a Surface. I already have an iPad, an Android, and all other sorts of goodies. But I don't have a Surface yet, so I can't really speak to it. I do have a touchscreen computer with Windows 8, so it's pretty similar, I guess. But either way, take all those things to heart. Anybody that you know that may have a brilliant idea for the next big app, the next big website, and I say app too because app works the same thing or the same way. There's UX, UI design. There's the design itself to make it look nice, and then there's development. All these pieces and parts still work, plus there's also maintenance. Maybe not as much maintenance as there is in a big, huge, massive website, but there still is maintenance. Something needs, things need to be, constantly monitored. So if you know anybody or if you yourself have a great idea, think about these things first. Unless you're willing to do most of this work yourself, you need to make sure that you have all these tools at hand or this knowledge at hand. So that's it. I'm going to play one more song, again, from one of my bands. This band, not with my brother, just me playing drums. So we'll end there, and hopefully I can get a hold of the radio station here soon, and we'll get that bank of music so we can stop over promoting my own music. So thanks everybody. I hope this helped out. This is Bloodshot Eyes, Not for the Reason You Think. I believe our singer was talking more about working third shift in a factory. Now, this is Bloodshot Eyes from That Crafty Devil, recorded at the Meet the Music sessions hosted by Julia Meek.
That ain't my goal.